So today, as we reflect on the readings given to us for this particular Sunday, I'd like to bring us to our first reading, back to the book of Genesis, the very first book of the Bible. And as we sit down with it, as we reflect on the book of Genesis that was proclaimed to us, we are able to see that there is a good news and there's also a bad news that the readings want to convey to us today. I'd like to begin first with the bad news, because that way it kind of leads us to a good news and some kind of hope as we kind of flow into that. So the bad news is that what the first reading is telling us, what Genesis is telling us, is that the more we try to be godlike, the more that we are not. The more that we try to aim for this godlike status in life, the more that we fail in being able to achieve that. And we see that with Adam and Eve. When Adam and Eve ate from the fruit, from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, they did not really attain any kind of divine knowledge or any kind of divine power which the serpent assured them. Rather, it revealed to them their nakedness, or in other words, their vulnerability. What they saw there was how small they were in the cosmos without God in it, how insignificant they were, how helpless they were, how powerless they were, instead of really thinking that they were powerful, they would achieve this godlike power by eating of the fruit. Unfortunately, this pattern still continues until us today. We thought that, we would learn from this, that we would learn from the lessons of Adam and Eve, and yet it still continues for us today, where we still see a lot of people that strive to set God out of the equation and try to seek divine knowledge and divine power by our own means, by our own capabilities. And to just give one example, just imagine these people who have discovered, the power of atom, the fundamental nature of matter, and how they thought that by discovering this atom and the power that comes with it, that they could achieve divine knowledge and they could be powerful beyond any other people in the world because of this. But what really happened was that it led them to the opposite end. Rather than the freedom of being godlike, it created for them a culture of fear. Because what the atom did now is that the knowledge of the atom had kind of made them realize that the atom could be used against them and it could put danger into their lives. And now they are imprisoned by this idea. They're imprisoned by this detail. And so instead of the freedom of being powerful and godlike, now they are being controlled by this idea, the knowledge of what the atom does. And that's why it's kind of like this thing, there's the irony here, that when we thought that by setting God aside and seeking knowledge on our own, we can become godlike, as the serpent has said to Adam and Eve, the opposite thing has happened to us. There's this Promethean idea that I need to steal knowledge from God rather than seek it from him, because he will never share it. But what it really showed us is that whenever we try to seek it without him, we cannot really attain that status. We can't really attain what we're longing for. And rather, it holds us in fear. It imprisons us, and we become more and more enslaved to this particular idea. That's the bad news. As I've said, there's also the good news in all of these. And the good news is that in spite of creating a world where we set God aside, in spite of creating a world where we try to live in it without God, God still wants us, and God still pursues us. God still wants us to become part of his family. He still wants us to be in a family with him. And even when we think that it is us who found him, like Adam and Eve thought, but the reality is that he's the one who found us, just as he found Adam. That even when Adam fell into sin, God sought him and God found him. And that's the good news for all of these, is that God seeks us because he wants us to still live in this idea of a family, a household with him. And here's also the interesting about all these, is that all these knowledge, all these power that we want in our lives, that we want to steal from him, these are actually things that he wants to give us as his sons and daughters. They are our inheritance. So it's kind of like amazing to think that what we were trying to steal from him is something that he wants to readily give us as his sons and daughters. And so I think that our reading today, as we reflect on this, is that this is the idea of a God that no matter how much we fall, no matter how much we return our backs from him, but he desires us to come back to him. He desires us to be in a family, in a household with him. And whatever it is that we seek in our lives, he can readily give those to us. So let's think in our lives, maybe in the past or maybe in the recent moments where we desire something and we thought that we need to do this on our own because we don't think God can give it to us. Our first reading today and our gospel remind us that as his sons and daughters, we have all of these as our inheritance he's ready to give us. All we need to do is to turn to him and ask. Amen.